The Mosaic Project of Oakland, California, has been working toward a peaceful future by uniting children of diverse backgrounds, providing them with essential community building skills, and empowering them to become peacemakers for 21 years. In this episode of Race Talk Revolution, Mr. Chemnis Fisher, Youth Leadership Project Director of the Mosaic Project, discusses Mosaic's vision of a peaceful, just, diverse, and inclusive world where individuality and community are both core values and where listening, empathy, and assertiveness guide their interactions. This episode originally aired December 15th, 2021.
Good morning, good afternoon to everybody, and welcome to another Race Talk Revolution episode. This is Race Talk Revolution with Lane and Eugene. Race Talk Revolution is a place where your voice matters. So I want to thank you again for joining us today. And welcome to all of you, the new people here to Race Talk today. So glad that you are here. Oh man, today I'm so grateful for today. Our speaker is Mr. Chemnis Fisher. Chemnis is a youth leadership project director of the Mosaic Project located in Oakland, California. He will be speaking with us about their work to empower youth to build communities where they are seen, heard, and respected. Now, as always, during our conversation today, we ask that you please remain muted. And then when we get to the Q&A section of the show, we will instruct you on how to raise your hand. We also want to remind you, as we do every week, that Race Talk Revolution is a loving, inclusive platform designed to strip away the false beliefs that keep us separated as human beings, uncover the not so hidden truth that we all really do want the same things in life, and to heal the wounds created by systemic racism. Race Talk Revolution is a safe and brave space for people of all backgrounds to share ideas and opinions and to explore the nuances of systemic racism while together growing our capacity for effective anti-racist activism. The Race Talk Revolution community, as you know, we are committed to practicing radically inclusive love. Now, what that means is that though we may not understand or agree with what's being shared, we are committed to listening with respect, appreciation, and empathy. You see, it is our commitment that every person be encouraged, heard, and appreciated, because here on Race Talk Revolution with Lane and Eugene, every voice matters. And here's my beautiful co-host, Reverend Lane Cobb.
Hello, everybody. So happy to see you guys. So happy to see folks that haven't been here in a while and some people that are just here for the first time. Welcome. Please do come again every week. And every week I get the distinct honor of introducing our speaker for the afternoon. Today, as Eugene said, our speaker is Mr. Chemnis Fisher. He is the Youth Leadership Project Director at the Mosaic Project, which is an organization that teaches people of all ages the skills they need to build the peaceful world they envision. Since 2007, Mr. Fisher has worked with Mosaic at the Outdoor Project and through the Mosaic Consulting Project. He is responsible for providing a network of teens and youth adults with opportunities for mentorship and leadership. He connects youth from all different backgrounds and offers them facilitation experience in assertive communication, conflict resolution, and Mosaic's unique curriculum. Chemnis has a BA from California State University of Fullerton and an education specialist credential from San Francisco State University. He thinks he is the best at goal ball, but that has yet to be proven. And so I guess you're going to tell me what goal ball is, but right now, welcome to Race Talk Revolution. Thanks so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about Mosaic Project.
All right, thank you, Lane. Hi, everybody. Hi. I apologize, there's not enough light. I haven't, one of my light bulbs just went out as y'all were speaking. But hopefully y'all are still able to see my beautiful shining face.
We can see you just fine.
We got
You're
you.
very handsome. We see you.
All right, thank you so much. So yes, and you guys have pronounced my name absolutely correctly. So thank you so much. Appreciate that. For those of y'all who still figured it out, it's chem like chemistry and it's nest like necessary. Like it's necessary to get chemness. So just like that. And I am from Los Angeles, born and raised. And you know, a lot of people, when I tell people I grew up in South Central, they get these images about where I'm from and what I've been going through. And granted, there is some degree of reality of it, but I grew up with everyone else, just like riding bikes and jumping ramps and skateboarding and do all that stuff. In fact, a lot of my friends we used to talk about, dream about doing all sorts of stuff, like being a police officer, or being a fireman, being a truck driver, or being an athlete, and always being some sort of entertainment and stuff like that, right? So we all had these things happening in neighborhoods, but although in the peripheral, we did have gang affiliations and people wanted to be in gangs and doing stuff like that, yet it wasn't within the center of our scope, right? It was always people who were involved with that type of lifestyle, or people who were actually had to be in that lifestyle. Either their family structure had deteriorated to the point where they had family out in the streets. And so we knew people who were involved with that was usually there because they had no other place to go. And that was pretty much the situation. It wasn't until later on in years where I was taken back with people who were still involved with gangs, and their aspiration was to be in a gang and to go to jail and all that stuff. And I was like, whoa, what is happening, right? But just so you know, it wasn't always that way. And it wasn't always the aspiration. And I still don't think it is. I think most youth, when they are nurtured in a safe environment and respectful environment, I don't think their first thought is, I want to be a menace to society, right? It's a progress, it's a learned behavior. And the fast forward, I started sharpening my social justice teeth in the early 90s with the Rodney King verdict with the civil unrest. At that time, I was a freshman in college, and just learning the ropes on how to navigate life in an adult way. And when the verdict came out, at least from our perspective, or when the video came out, we thought, all right, now they get to see exactly what has been going on in our neighborhood, and we're finally going to see some justice, and here's what's been going on. See, we weren't lying about it, and there was the police abuse and all that stuff. And then when the verdict came out, first it was shock and awe. Well, the original shock and awe, right? Whoa, what? And then that was, for a lot of people, at least from my perspective, was a big giant slap in the face. It's like, whoa, so really? And everyone came off scot clean, and there was a lot of anger. There's a lot of anger and a lot of frustration. And I purposely called it a civil unrest because it was a civil unrest. It was where we realized that we were not in Kansas anymore, and the world wasn't what it was projected to be in our education. You know, obviously racism was still alive and well, and it was a rude awakening for a lot of us, and we took it in a very negative and a self-destructive way, but understood where all the anger and frustration was coming from. Right? And that's why I finally decided that something needs to be done. After getting my recentering myself again, I decided that I want to do something about it. You know, so after all the madness had settled down a bit, a lot of these nonprofits started coming in and started talking about gang. And by the way, there was already a gang truce happening before the civil unrest. It was already things in the works happening for that to start happening. But then when civil unrest came up, that started taking the lead of it. Now, when everything settled back down, we started going back to the drawing to what can we do about, one, cleaning up our neighborhood, but also resuming the construction of a more peaceful environment in the neighborhood. What can we do to get these gangs and people to get along? So it's happening. But then we had the added noise of these nonprofits coming in with all this money. We're going to help you people. We're going to show you what to do because we know better. You know, no one ever came to us asking us what do we need or what we've been doing before they even came. They just came in, a lot of money came in, a lot of public speaking, a lot of motivational speakers came in. And at the end of it, not much happened at all. But I did learn that there are certain types of degrees and certain types of organization that needs to happen, but it's not going to happen when you're not talking with the people that you would like to help improve their lives or organize, right? And so that was one key thing I learned. And that's when I originally, this is when I was going to Cal State Fullerton. I'm from Los Angeles. And I went to a school, Cal State Fullerton in Orange County. And I originally started as a business major because I wanted to make that big mighty dollar. And I saw that happening that way. But then with everything else happening in our society, I thought, well, maybe I need to second think that situation. I still went through with my BA in financial management because I was almost done. But I also want to get some idea with educating and teaching, because at that time I felt that education was the key to help fix things. And it was great. And I got my teaching credential. I did a lot of substitute teaching. I started noticing other disparities. Like I noticed when I would do some work in the classrooms with, back then they were called GATE programs. They didn't have AP classes and all that stuff. But I noticed a lot of these GATE programs, a lot of the kids were either white or Asian. And then when I spoke to other classes, unfortunately, a lot of classes, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but a lot of classes dealing with in special ed, a lot of the students in those classes were students of color, so Black and brown, pretty much. And so I started noticing that pattern as I was doing that. I couldn't explain why it was happening and what I was seeing or what was going on. I noticed every time I would speak outside of my workshops with these students, these Black and brown students, I couldn't, like my idea of special ed was someone who was either had Down syndrome or some other type of capability, some type of situation that needed help with academics to get the. But when I was talking with the other students, we were having, full-blown conversations. We were playing basketball, doing all kind of stuff. I could not figure out for the life of me why they were in special ed. And it wasn't until I started doing other work with them with reading. And I started to know, so in my mind, like the only reason you're in here is because you're not able to read well. And it wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't because of their shortcomings. It was a shortcoming of the institution, And that's when I started getting more and more of an informed idea of what it means, or what, at least my definition about social justice is education is a key component of that, right? And things progressed on, became a teacher. I taught, got my credential, was teaching for a while. And I learned the difference between what schooling is and what education is. And in the midst of doing a lot of that, I was introduced, I did a lot of outdoor, I have a lot of pathways. I got to try and merge them together. But I also did some work with outdoor recreation programs. And in that capacity, I was told about an organization that was renting out this campground I was assistant director for. And they said, yeah, well, it's an organization that rent out our site. And we rent it out in the fall and spring. And they do a lot of singing, and they do stuff with peace, and the kids get to sing, and they take them in all over the place. So, and I was sharing with my director at the time about some of the things I wanted to do about cleaning up my neighborhood, South Central, and somehow getting these students out of a survival mode of thinking. Maybe somehow I can get them out into to the outdoors where we are right now, and therefore they can get out of a state of panic and start reflecting on who they want to be, where they want to go, what they want to do with their lives. And that's when the person that was Tony, was shared with me about what this Mosaic Project was all about. And the way he described it, it sounded like a bunch of hippies singing and dancing and doing stuff. And I was like, I don't see that really happening or working from where I want to go. But he said, well, how about I give the director your number, and then she'll reach out to you and take it from there. I said, all right, go ahead and do it. And so reached out, spoke, interviewed, boom, boom, and I started doing some contract work with the Mosaic Project at first. So what is the Mosaic Project, right? And so the Mosaic Project is a nonprofit. It's based in Oakland, California. It's been around since 2000. It was established and founded by Laura Mendel and Gogi. And for the life of me, I cannot remember Gogi's last name because all I did was call her Gogi. But Gogi and Laura. And Laura thought of the idea of working with young children because in her experience, she did a lot of social justice work within the high school arena. But notice by the time the children were in high school, their ideas were pretty much already solidified, and she wanted to try and meet children before the ideas were solidified, you know, and which is why we focus on 4th and 5th graders originally, because we know once, you know, when they get about 9, 10, or 11, they still have their foot in 2 worlds pretty much. They have the fantasized world, the Walt Disney world, but then they're also starting to get a better idea of what's going on around them, right? And we wanted to be able to catch them just at that point where they're starting to look at the world around them, what's going on, what's cool, what's not, how should I present myself? We want to be able to give them the tools to be able to do that. And that's why we focused originally on the 4th and 5th graders because of that, because we wanted to meet at that level. And so, yes, go ahead.
Give it real fast, because that's a great spot for me to ask this question. You say that children, well, you know, children become aware of race at a very early age. So let me ask you, how early do you begin working with children? Well, in your empowerment programs, I know that's where you were going.
How early do we work with them in
your empowerment programs?
Oh yeah, 4th, 5th. So yeah, 9, 10, 11. So 4th and 5th grades. We start working them at that age. Yeah.
What are your goals for them, Chemnis? What are your goals for the kids?
The goal for the kids is to give them tools that they would need to build communities where they are heard, seen, and respected. And the situation goes this way. I always like giving an analogy where swimming, right? Let's just say you're swimming, and let's say you don't know how to swim, right? And you get thrown into the deep end of the swimming pool. What's the first thing's going to happen? You know, well, let me ask you, what would happen? You get thrown into a pool. What's going to happen, Rich?
Well, I guess if you can't, you're going to struggle, right?
You're going to struggle. You're going to panic.
You're going to panic.
You are going to panic. You're going to be grabbing for anything and whatever you can closest to you, right? To do your best to get out and to survive that situation, right? And a lot of our youth, they get thrown into that situation where they're panicking and they're swimming, they're grabbing for the quickest thing, the nearest thing possible. Unfortunately, the lowest hanging fruit sometimes aren't the best things in the long run for them to hold on to, but that's what they got, right? And so what the Mosaic Project is striving to do is to give them tools when they are in that situation, when they find themselves in that situation, hopefully even before that situation, but they at least have the tools to be able to navigate those waters in a constructive way, instead of a lot of the destructive way a lot of our youth are getting into these days.
Well, can you name some of the tools? What are some of the tools that you're teaching them?
All right, thank you. So the tools, let's see. Well, we have a concept that's called assertive communication. And what we mean by assertive communication is, as I said before, when you're in that panic mode, you're either in the fight or flight thing. So either you're going to fight or you're going to run away, right? And those are the two strategies of behaviors that we're all grown up with and know and love. And so what happens with assertive communication, you have a third option, right? And the third option is not the run. The third option is also not the fight, but the third option is to be able to respond to a situation instead of react to a situation, right? And what we mean by assertive communication is that it's a state of mind that you want to be in where you're calm, cool, confident, collective, and calm, cool, collective, confident, and clear. There you go, right? And it's going to feel the same way for every student, but it's going to look different in different contexts and situations, right? And so we talk about what it looks like to be assertive and how to be assertive instead of reacting to situations, you're responding to situations. So that's just one of the tools. Other tools we use is, we call it 5 tools of conflict resolution. And I can talk more about that as well. And basically the main tool that we are trying to get across to them is being able to communicate in a respectful and in a compassionate way, right? Being able to communicate with people from different backgrounds, from different cultural backgrounds, to be able to empathize with people from different backgrounds, and to be able to assertively communicate and to be able to make sure that people know how to respect you but you also have the capacity to respect other people and give room for other people's voices to be heard.
I love it. Do you get any resistance ever from the students?
Oh, yeah. Especially when it comes to the assertive communication aspect. Because I was resistant when I first heard about it. You know, they talk about, oh, it sounds like a turn the other cheek kind of situation. And a lot of that stuff doesn't really work from where I grew up at. And show me how that's going to work in situations where, you know, my life may be in danger. And as we always like to say, it is not a foolproof plan, no, but it is a strategy of communication that's going to maximize respect and minimize violence and disrespect. And the key thing is you want to be able to put yourself in an empowering state where you can respond to the situation instead of react to the situation. Obviously, if you see, for instance, two kids on the playground and you see them fighting, you want to make sure you're not going to put yourself in any danger. But what can be an assertive behavior to help those students, you know, where you can go get an adult, you know, or you can go get someone else to help break up the fight, you know, that would be an empowering thing to do. And then they go, well, isn't that snitching? I'll go, thank you for asking about the snitching thing. So what's the difference between being a snitch and being an ally, right? And to being a snitch is someone who's telling on someone because they have skin in the game and they want someone to get in trouble, right? They're on someone's side, either on one A person's side or B person's side. Whereas an ally is on A and B side, and they want both individuals to be safe, right? And so that's the difference between being a snitch and being an ally and being assertive in that situation. Does that help?
Well, while you're talking, I have a couple of things, place where my mind went. Like one of them is, you know, that schools in general are structured according to white organizational structure, right? So we have all of our, you know, kids of color who are, you know, getting in trouble, you know, at a higher rate, suspensions and so forth. And there's this whole kind of communication issue. And you were talking about respectful communication, right? Often that the teachers and the students are not really communicating in a way that is conducive to understanding. We have that, and then we also have the pressure from the gangs. So I'm wondering, how do you see that your program is helping with the communication inside of school between students and teachers and administration, and is it also helping them be gang resistant? And I know there's a lot there to unpack, but that's just where I went with it.
Okay, all right. Well, let's focus on the school at first. It's only going to work if we have the buy-in from the teachers as well as the other administrative staff, right? Which is why whenever schools approach us and want to do workshops, we always ask to do professional development training with the teachers first, right? Because we want to make sure the teachers have a good idea on what their students will be going through during the workshop. And the teacher will have the same language and the concepts. So when we leave, because we're only there anywhere from 1 day, a full day, either for a half day, a full day, or 2 days max when we go to their school, right? And so we're only there for a very small amount of time. And so we're just dropping seeds. And it's going to be up to the teacher and administrative staff to carry on. We keep coming back to reinforce and do some touch-ups and refine stuff. But it's really going to be up to the administrative staff as well as the teachers to be able to carry on that particular new culture within their environment. If the teachers don't have the buy-in, the students can do the best they can, but it's gonna dwindle eventually. So one of the key things we do is make sure that we do the professional developments with the adults, with the teachers first, before we even approach talking with the kids. And that goes the same with the community, you know, in terms of diminishing gang violence, right? We need to talk with the community. We need to go into the community and talk with people who are going through it and ask them what they're doing, you know, and what we can do to assist. So it's always going to be from their perspective. We are just giving tools, some additional tools that they can use.
Very nice. So while working with the kids, Chemnis, there was a question that Gail asked, So in working with the kids, do you ever, some of the activity around role playing?
Yes, absolutely. It's called experiential education. And and that's actually the strong point with the Mosaic Project is a significant amount of role playing, because we want to be able to put people in the situation and have them work it out for their own selves with the tools that we give them. So definitely do that a lot. And we talk about how it's very important. We talk about the 3 levels of learning, right? You have the first level of learning where you learn the concepts, learn the terminology, and you get it down. And then the second part is start applying the new terminology, the new concepts, and we put people in situations where they have to be able to work the way out of it to apply what they learned. So that's the second part. And the third part is on them. They have to keep doing it over and over again, and then it becomes automatic. So the first step, learning the concepts and terminology. The second part is now acting on it, role playing and talking about it. And the third part, keep doing it over and over again so it becomes automatic.
Did you already say what the concepts and terminology is?
I have not. So good. Thank you for bringing me back to on the path. So as I said, it's a Mosaic Project. We have a very good idea on what it means, what a mosaic is. You know, it's an art form with different pieces, different colors, different shapes, all formed together to create a community or an art form. And that's the general image of it. Now, each letter stands for a value or agreement. So M is for mutual respect. O is for open-mindedness. The S is for self-respect. And I always like to add with the self-respect, actually, if there's no self-respect, then you don't have any resources for mutual respect. Self-respect is a key aspect. And then what's the next letter? A for attitude. And we also like to add awesome or positive attitude. And what we mean by awesome and positive attitude isn't that you need to skip around with a smile on your face and throwing roses and blowing bubbles. We're not talking about that kind of positive attitude. We're talking about a positive attitude where whatever situation you're in, especially if it's a challenging situation, that you're looking for the silver lining. You're looking for a constructive way to work through it. So that's what we mean by a positive attitude. And then the I for Mosaic is individuality. And what we mean by that is we hopefully that we're providing a space for you to feel comfortable to ask your authentic questions, to be your authentic self, and to bring your individuality to the table. So I for individuality, and C is for community, you know, and the type of community that we're trying to establish to be able to practice these values that I just shared with you. And hopefully that's going to be within your community where people are seen, heard, and respected. And so those are our general values, and we always introduce those values at the beginning of every workshop so we can set the container, and so people know exactly what we are expecting of them. And we're always asking, are there any values, any agreements that we didn't cover that you would like us to be mindful of, you know, and give space for that. So that's like our key values right there, those Mosaic values. And everything that we're doing is surrounding those values. Now, another key thing while I'm on it is what we call the pyramids, right? Is a pyramid of violence and pyramid of peace. And so what I ask for you all to do is to engage your imagination and imagine what a pyramid looks like, or a triangle, you know, and then on the base of that triangle of the pyramid is where we have separation and segregation. So separation and segregation is on the base of it. And this, I'm talking about the pyramid of violence, by the way. So the pyramid of violence, and the bottom of the pyramid of violence is separation and segregation. Then the level up on top of that is fear and ignorance. So you have fear and ignorance that is derived from that separation and segregation. And then the next level up of fear and ignorance is stereotyping, prejudice, and discrimination, right? And then above that level is discrimination. And then what type of discrimination is violence, right? Violent discrimination. I know I was doing a workshop and a high school student said, you know what, man, I looked at discrimination and all it says here is it's to distinguish between differences. And I go, you're right. That's what discrimination is, the root word of it, or the root meaning of it. But what we're talking about here is a type of discrimination, a dehumanizing discrimination or a violent discrimination where you get your humanity is preyed upon. So this is the type of discrimination we're talking about, right? And then violent discrimination, then a level beyond that is war. And then on the top of the pyramid of violence, we have genocide. And we always like to ask, what do y'all think we mean by genocide? And a lot of kids know this. Oh, it's wiping out a whole people. And I go, okay, that's great, right? So you go, so how do you get from genocide on the very top? What's on the bottom? When we talk about separation, you know? So the key thing is separate, right? And what we mean by fear and ignorance, because a lot of people say when they talk about ignorance, it has the connotation of being stupid, right? And that's not what we mean by ignorance. You know, fear restricts your visual concept, right? It restricts, and so if you narrow in your visual, your concept, then you're going to be missing out on a lot more out there. So in a sense, you're ignoring the greater part of your reality when you're in that state of fear. Just like when I talked about when you're swimming and you're drowning and you're grabbing for stuff, right? You're fearful and you're going to be ignoring anything else that's out there. You're going to need a lifeguard to come dive you in and save you, right? So that's what we mean by fear and ignorance. And it feeds each other. I'm fearful because I don't know what's going on out there, and I'm ignorant because I'm fear. So it goes back and forth. Now, to answer the pyramid of violence, we have the pyramid of peace. And the pyramid of peace on the very bottom is connection. You know, we answer that separation and segregation with connection. And what we mean by connection, it isn't that we're going to take a bunch of kids from different backgrounds and get them in an area and go, okay, connect. That isn't going to happen, right? So what we mean by connection and connect is putting people from different backgrounds in a neutral environment, which is what we do, but also giving them opportunities to engage in constructive communication. So what we mean by that is we give them some things to do, some activities. That's where the experience or education comes in. And they get to talk about real life situations. They get to engage in real life questioning and answers, and they have meaningful conversations with each other. And from that meaningful conversation and from those constructive activities that they're doing to accomplish things together, that's where that connection comes in, doing things together and acting. And then from that connection, sorry, I'm being distracted. From that connection, the next level up is where you get that respect, and then being able to respect. And we have a different definition of respect that if you can remind me, I can tell you about. And then from respect, you have empathy, empathizing. What we mean by empathy is the common phrase is putting yourself in other people's shoes. But I also like to add with empathy, empathy is not agreeing with what somebody is saying or doing. It's not about agreeing with it, but empathy is that skill that we can develop to be able to gain a better understanding on why that person is saying or doing something. So it's not about agreeing with them, it's just about getting that understanding. And with that understanding, now you have the potential of finding that common ground. So you have the respect, you have the empathy, and then the level up of the pyramid, we have that assertive communication, which I talked about earlier. And then on the peak of that pyramid of peace is peace, right? So connection, respect, empathy, assertive communication through conflict resolution. I skipped that part. And then on the top, you have the peace. And peace is not really a destination. Peace is a process. It is a communication, is what it is. Yeah. So those are some of the concepts that we were talking about to answer that question.
Just real fast. I'm going to see if I can do this. So Chemnis, and I wanted to look this up. Can everybody see that screen with the two pyramids?
Yep.
Lane?
Yes.
So this, I had to go, I wanted to find out what, if there were graphics. Somebody was asking about the graphics. So here that is, see if I can, no, it's not going to allow me to increase the size.
That's okay. They're visible. They're visible.
Okay, good. So just wanted to bring that up, for folks can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess Eugene, if they wanted to find that, I'm just looking to see what the search might have been. I was looking for it too and didn't see it, but I guess if you look up Pyramid of Violence, you might be able to find it.
Yeah, which is what I did.
Oh, it's at the mosaicproject.org. So if you go to the website, sweet. Guys, if you go to the website there, you'll see that. But that's a brilliant construct. Like, it's really brilliant, like it's solid. There's a structure, it's a visual, it's language, there's an energetic concept to it. That's a beautiful thing. And that is what, of course, adults need to do. That's what we all need to do, right? We need to engage in meaningful conversation about stuff that gets us on common ground with people. And the fact that you're doing this with kids is why it's working, probably, right? So I'm just curious about what results you've seen from the work that you're doing. Results have you seen?
Ooh, that's a big question. At this point, I would pull off my PowerPoint and show you all the statistics that we have. But the key things to keep in mind, the thing is, we mostly get, well, the kids get it. The kids get it. They just need the tools and the words to be able to use to describe what's going on in their life. The biggest response that we get is from the adults and the teachers in their lives about it. Because we every time they go to our outdoor project, I didn't talk too much about that. But our mothership program is the outdoor project. So it's we have kids coming in from many different walks of life and coming into an outdoor environment where, like I said, neutral. They get to bond with nature, they connect with nature, and some kids freak out eventually, especially some of my young brothers and sisters from the inner city. But eventually they settle down and they get to enjoy themselves. But because they're in that neutral environment in the outdoors and they get to learn these concepts, the kids, the common frame from them is that now they have some tools to be able to use to talk about their life experience and their life journey. With the adults in their lives, they're just amazed on how articulate a lot of their students start becoming. Because we have a lot of students, we have students that come in, and we have teachers that say, oh, well, this person's shy, don't expect them to communicate or respond or interact too much with them. But the fact that they're here is a great step on their part, right? And these are kids these are students who have, I forgot the diagnosis, but some students who do not speak at all for whatever reason, maybe some type of traumatic experience they have and they don't speak for whatever reason. And they may have one adult that they entrust in speaking with, or maybe just another peer that they would whisper to in their ear or something like that. But as anyone else, they're not going to speak at all. And there's been several cases where we get students like that. And by the end of the week, they're not holding any dissertations or anything like that, but they're talking much more. And the teacher is always amazed on how the student is now engaging with the rest of the students. And my belief is because now they have tools, and plus we provided an environment where they feel safe enough to be able to do that. Lane, as you discussed before about the school environment for a lot of our teachers, unfortunately, a lot of our schooling is a very predative and a scary place for a lot of students. And so it isn't the best place for them to be able to feel like they're going to be safe enough to open up their minds to learn new information. Right? But once they get into the outdoor environment, they start first we get tested because they think, who are these people singing and dancing around us? What's going on? But eventually about 2 or 3 days in, they start getting it and they start feeling the flavor as well. And they're able to shine. And once again, even if they're with us for a week, it's only a week. It's really going to be up to those teachers to reinforce what they learned that week, which is why when the kids come up, the teachers go up with them for a week, right? So the teachers also are going to experience what the kids are going through.
Khemnes, I have a question that's been asked in the chat twice, actually. So is this program only in California or is it spread out? How's that look? What's going on with that?
Yes, the program is only in California right now. It's a very small nonprofit, so we're doing the best we can. We recently acquired land over in Castro Valley that is under development now. We're still going through the permitting process. And so, we at least progressing on and we're growing. Fortunately, well, I shouldn't say fortunately, but with the event with the pandemic, we've been able to have a more broader reach with Zooming and stuff, and being able to reach people from different. We've done a couple of workshops in Japan, Japan and Australia, as well as other states in Colorado, Chicago, and Michigan. So with the virtual platforms, we've been able to have a more longer reach than we normally could have in the past. So in that part, but our ultimate aim is to be able to create satellites all over the place, right? Basically, we're based in Oakland right now, but we're hoping to have like place in Los Angeles. We're hoping to have place in Chicago. My dream is to be able to have place, especially in challenging situations in the inner city, you know, and to be able to get little satellites there and then train adults, train community members there to be able to do that, you know. So we come in, train the community members, and then we all check back in to see how things are going. So that's our hope in the broad scope of things, is to be able to go throughout the rest of the nation to say.
Great. So you were saying, Chemnis, that, you work with, you go in when going into the schools and you work with, the teachers and the admin first. Now, let me ask you, do you also work with parents? Work with the parents? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. When we worked with parents, mostly when we were doing our outdoor project, right? Because we had to, have to persuade, we had to let the parents know that we're gonna have your kids for a week, your child for a week. That's a very significant trust that you're having in us. And so we definitely work with parents. We talk with the parents. Here's what your child's going to be going through for the week. But in the other slide to it, and also with the pandemic, we've been working more and more with parent PTAs, with PTA. So we've been working with that aspect as well, and sharing with them our concepts and our strategies for building more safer communities on their campuses and schools.
Thank you. Yes, Lane, absolutely, because it is about that time for Q&A, but also there are some great questions going on in the chat. So we want to invite you to raise your hand and ask your questions now. And so the way that you raise your hand is you take your cursor down to the bottom, the right-hand side, the bottom of the screen, and you see reactions, click on reactions, and then press raise hand. If you can't find the option there, go to participants, which is on the left side of those icons, and press on that, find your name, and then click on the little three dots. And you should find the ability to raise your hand there. All righty. And because we have, two screens, because we have 442 people on, I would say to raise your hand like this, but it's kind of hard for Lane and I to keep track of that. So if you can find raise hand button, that would be great. And please ask your questions. There's a lot of questions, a lot of good questions that I've been seeing in the chat. All righty. And so we start off with our dear brother, Tyrone Cozy.
Good morning, Brother Chemnis.
Morning, sir.
This man is very modest, so I have to say this. Chemnis, you're one of my personal heroes. Chemnis is very inspirational. He's had a lot of challenges in his life, including vision, and he's just an amazing human being. He's also one of the leaders in our Spiritual Man Gathering Spiritual Man Ministry. And so I'm just so proud to see you up there, brother.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My question to you is, I get a little sick of the conservative side constantly trying to remind us that Black people kill each other more than police do. Mm-hmm. And so I want your take on that a little bit. We both know that a young Black man walking down the street with his pants half hanging down scares the shit out of most people. Mm-hmm. I mean, it triggers me. I grew up in Chicago, so I can imagine how it impacts other people. And yet we know that the issues are much deeper than that, right? We know that they run really deep. So I guess two questions I have for you. How do you balance your sense of your sense of spirituality, which I know is very close to your heart, with the passion that you have for serving youth who are typically just written off or just assume they're going to be, jail bait, basically. What's your take on that?
All right, thank you, Tyrone. My take is no one is born and goes to their parents going, Mama, I want to be a drug addict when I grow up, or I want to start snatching and grabbing things when I grow up, or I want to rob it. No one is born wanting to do that. It's not an initial desire and aspiration for any child, whatever, Black, white, brown, or yellow, right? So once the thing that helps me is that I know that these are learned behaviors. So you can learn through that. If your life experiences have led you to develop those type of skills, then it's possible that you can learn some additional skills on top of that. Maybe some skills that are going to be able to make your life more enjoyable, or at least more safer. So no one is born wanting to be a detriment to the society. And I don't engage with the when I hear people tell me about, oh, more black on black crime, and I say, well, I ask them, why do you think it's that way? And then the conversation starts that way. All right, if you see that, then why do you think it's that way? Do you think people want to be able to fight with each other and kill each other? So what do you think happened to them to make them be in that state? And then I put it on them. All right, you see it, so why do you think they do that? And then the end of the conversation is, what can we do about it? All right, thanks for letting me know what you see out there. So what can we do about it? This is our planet, and we have enough people on the news broadcasting stuff, but we don't have enough people in the streets doing anything about it. So now that you notice, what do you want to do about it? So with that conversation. But yeah, the thing that keeps me centered is that we are divine individuals initially and having a human experience. And unfortunately, some of those human experiences would lead us to have some destructive behaviors, But we can also work to give additional experiences in people's lives that would lead them to have more positive experiences, more positive skills, more positive behaviors.
Thank you, Dr. Khemnes.
All right, you're welcome.
May I just say as well, Chemnis, in listening to you and Tyrone speak, what is true is that kids are amazing at learning new skills and applying those, right? If you give so youth organizing is an amazingly powerful force, right? So you get youth together in organizing mode, and they will do some changes if they are given the right support in the background. One of the things that you said you provide kids with is community building skills. What are some community building skills?
Okay. Well, as I alluded to, so once again, being able to be, and those skills are the values that I mentioned before: the open-mindedness, the self-respect, the attitude about things. We also talk about the skills about listening. We have a concept that's called keys to peace, right? So the three keys to peace is the listening, the empathy, and the assertive communication. And what we mean by listening, it can be a very powerful thing. We have an exercise where we have kids for 30 seconds. I want you to talk with your partner, and then the other person is going to be practicing their worst listening skills whatsoever. So you have partner A that's going to be sharing their favorite movie. Partner B is going to be practicing their worst listening skills whatsoever. I don't know what to do. It's just really bad listening skills, right? And we ask them, okay, at the end of that 30 seconds, how did you feel? It's like, well, I felt ignored. I felt small. I felt disrespected. I felt like they didn't want to talk anymore. I felt sad, all that stuff, right? But okay, now here's what I want to do. I want you to think of time you were really inspired, and I want you to share that, person A. And person B, now I want you to use your best listening skills that you have, and they share it. And then at the end of that, they say, now how do you feel? Oh, I felt like I was listened to, and I felt like respected. I felt seen. I felt energized. I felt like I want to talk more. And so then, and we write down those lists, right? So we have one side of the list, of the column, where they have what they felt like when they were not listened to. And then on this other column, now they have all these characteristics of what they felt like when they were listened to. And we say, just by listening alone, you create more peace in your environment, in your community, just by listening alone, right? So listening is a key aspect, it's a skill that we hear a lot about, listen this, but we don't get to see how powerful that is, But also listening can be very vulnerable as well, right? Because you're also listening with the possibility of changing your perspective, which can be a very vulnerable thing, especially if you're dead set on a particular perspective, right? But if you're in a conflict with somebody and you're truly listening to that person who you're talking with, then you're also setting yourself up for the opportunity to get a different perspective. It can be a vulnerable state to be in, right? And we have another concept is you want to avoid predatory listening, right? And what we mean by predatory listening is listening, actually not even listening. It's just you waiting for your spot to jump in, to prove yourself right and prove the other person wrong. So that's predatory. We call that predatory listening. And so we're communicating in a way to diminish the predatory listening as much as possible. So that's listening alone. That's just the first key. And then I already shared more about empathy and how powerful that can be. I'm trying to get a better understanding of why someone is saying and doing something but not agreeing. And then I also talked a bit more about assertive communication as well.
Okay. Thank you. I don't want to take the conversation back. I was just curious about that little thing. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. And that listening part is also in learning how to listen. Actively listening is something that we as adults, I'm going to say, and I don't usually use this word should, but this is something that we should be practicing more of. And I think listening is, if we're not careful, it can become a lost art, right? In terms of communication. That's why I love Race Talk Revolution, because we listen here. This is good. We have Jason, Adine, and then Tina.
Yeah, Chemnis, thanks for being here. I'm really appreciating all you're saying here. And one of the things that really jumped out for me when you were speaking a little bit ago was about white organizational culture. And as a person who I feel like I'm still in the middle of getting my education around all this. And when you said that, I thought, I don't have a clear picture of what that is or how that operates. And when I look at the organization I'm most involved in, which tends to be a lot more white than I would like it to be. And I suspect what you're talking about may be undergirding part of that. And so I'm interested in your thoughts on that topic, and also specifically how it's impacting your community.
In terms of organizing?
Well, when you talk about white organizational culture, I think, okay, well, what really is that? Because I feel like I'm just learning about that, and also, yeah, how is it impacting the community that you're in, the communities you work with?
Okay, I'm sorry. Did you say white organization culture?
I believe you said white organizational culture. Did I get that wrong?
Yeah, you might have got that wrong.
Eugene and I mentioned white organizational culture, Jason, and what I was saying was that schools and all of our institutions in the United States are organized around white American organizational culture, right? So there's a way of doing things, and when those ways are challenged, often by people who different cultures have a different way of organizing, communicating, listening, hearing, right? And that pushes against this white organizational culture. And then the pushback is that people get marginalized, right? Mm-hmm. So we could have a long talk about what white organizational culture is, and I'd love to do that with you, and probably not now, but Chemnis, that gives you some background about what he's asking about, right?
Okay, yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and there were some questions in the chat about how do the children you work with, how are they now pushing against this traditional white American culture in the school system? So maybe that's a question for you to answer.
Okay, I know when we talk with teachers, especially white teachers, we do talk about different cultural ways of conveying information to your students. Like, for instance, at least within I'm going to speak from the Black community specifically. In the Black community, we're orally based, right? So we're orally based. And so we do a lot of talking, and we do a lot. And so writing things down, strictly writing things down and regurgitating what you're writing doesn't really work well for a lot of our students. Yet having an open communication and giving students the opportunity to share their personal experience and talking open, I call it open talking, where just what's going through, how you feeling right now? Tell me what's going on in your day. A lot of times when kids walk into the classroom, the teacher's just ready to, all right, open up the books, let's go, right? That doesn't work for a lot of our kids, especially our Black kids. They need to feel like you really care about them. And the way to show that you care about them is to have that kind of, hey, how's it going? How was your morning so far? What'd you have for breakfast? What'd you do today? What are you planning to do today? Depending on what time of the day it is, Really? Oh, well, let me show you how that can relate to what we were just talking about. Here's how, I know I used to teach math, right? And math is a hard subject for a lot of students. I used to say, you just told me about you getting up this morning, and here's an algebraic problem. I can tell you how that works. You know, you got to do an algebraic problem every time you get up out of your bed and go to the bathroom and brush your teeth. You know, and I would break that down. But basically, in that way, with white structure, I shouldn't say white, but you know, dominant structured mainframe, the way we are taught in our academic world to be able to teach people is just to teach the facts, and that's the facts only. And a lot of our kids are drowning with all those facts because they need someone that's going to care for them, and they're not going to learn in a situation where they feel like someone doesn't care much about them. You know, I shut down myself. I remember that many times in elementary school. If I felt like that teacher didn't respect me or didn't see me, I was going to learn from that person at all, no matter how they were talking. You know? But if you get introduced with a teacher that's having an authentic conversation with you first, you know, connecting with you, how you doing? Wow, that's a cool jacket you got on, man. Where'd you get that from? You know, or, you know, exactly, you know. So being able to connect with them first, you know, and even though I'm speaking from a Black experience, I would venture to guess any child whatsoever is going to learn better in a situation where they feel like they're being seen, heard, respected, be it white, Black, brown, or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question, Jason. Chemnis, thank you. We have Adine, Tina, and then Charlotte.
Okay, Chemnis, thank you. You're just a ray of sunshine. You're really great. I'm a special educator and a parent and a grandma. So children have been are the center of my life. And I have two questions. At what point do you let the youngsters you work with understand that the struggles they are going through are in many cases created by an intentional racist society and do not reflect inherent faults in their Black and brown skin? Because what you are doing is you are giving them strategies to protect themselves against a very organized system that wants to keep them down. This is not an accident. That's my first question. The second question is, in your successful involvement with the students, are you getting more of the Black and brown parents to come out and get more involved? Because they too have been demoralized by this depressing, oppressive system and have just sort of given up. So that's two questions.
Okay. The first one about conveying to them the intentional nature of their social situation. With our 4th and 5th graders, we're not quite that direct. So with the 4th and 5th graders, we talk about the tools that they can use to combat that intentionality. You know, so in the concept, I always go back to the fact that if we give these students, these 4th and 5th graders, tools to be able to navigate that intentionality, at the very least, now they have something to work with that they don't have to seek power over anymore. They have their own self-empowerment. Okay. At the most, now they have something they can share with their peers to empower people around them. Now they can be a teacher as well. We talk about flip-flopping between teacher and student. You know, if you got something to share, you're the teacher, no matter how old you are, whatever. So you're teaching that, right? So that's within the 4th, 5th grade situation, we give them that kind of thing. When I work with the high schoolers, I'm much more direct and I'm much more explicit about their situation. And so we usually talk more directly with them.
Okay.
Because they know it already, you know, it's like they know about this. So then we get to talk about it. And then once we confirm with them that we know this is intentional and these are the tools we can do it, how can we apply these tools with the high school? Now with the parents, we don't reach as much as I would like, but it's because of the way schools are approaching us. A lot of the schools that are approaching us now are schools that have a lot of resources to pay for our services. Right? which is why I'm hoping once we get our land situated and things start happening in the land, that we will have much more freedom to invite people who may not have the resources to be able to get our services, you know, and to invite them in and talk about, especially when it comes to the inner city environment, you know, because I also know, speaking with different high schools, elementary schools within that environment, that it has to be on a smaller scale. Like when we go to other well-to-do high schools, usually we're talking to students anywhere from 25, 30 students at a time. But I do feel when I go into more inner city environments, I want to be on a smaller scale. I want like 10 students at a time. I'm talking to 10, and that way, and same with parents, you know, same with the parents. I don't want to talk with a whole stadium of parents, you know, I'd rather talk on a smaller scale and be able to reach you that way. And like I said, I think right now our biggest barrier is the resources that people have to be able to get our services.
Thank you so much.
Great questions, Adine, as usual. Thank you so very much. We have Tina, Charlotte, and then Felicia.
Hi, Chemnis. Thank you so much for coming on today. My perspective is someone who worked with kids and a parent. And I may be probably missing the whole picture, but I think of my sister went through it, and then my daughter did something called the DARE program, where they teach kids about, you know, resistance to drugs and things. And there's differences. Those done by a police officer. I don't know how much opportunity there is for dialogue, but the kids learn things to teach them to be drug resistant. And my sense is when they get older, the lure of it being cool weighs out against what they quote unquote know about it. So I wonder if there's a similar challenge with the kids. I mean, I'm glad to hear you work with them in the high school, but when kids get older, is there a lure of being cool? Like, I don't know, I'm working with, you know, seeing my daughter going through it. Sometimes it seems uncool to speak assertively or be listening, you know, it's more like you want to be a badass or something like that. So is that a challenge you come up against as the kids get older and maybe get more, for lack of a better word, disillusioned? And if you've had that experience, have you found there's things that work to help them stay engaged, to say, hey, it's worth sticking with this, even though it doesn't look as cool and glamorous as maybe what I'm seeing on videos or whatever?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. With the definitely get a lot of pushback with the high schoolers, because yeah, they're much more skeptical and cynical at that stage in their life, especially the students of color, right? And I think to just say no is fine, but that's saying no, but there's not much talking about what are you going to say yes to, right? And so I do a lot of my focusing on here's what the yes part, like here's what you can look forward to, here's how you can use these tools to do this. Because I know a lot of times I would talk and we would say something and then leading to like money, like, and all the kids are, oh yeah, man, I want to get that $1 million. That next, oh, Steph Curry, man, I'm going to be rolling in the dough. And I go, yes, you're great. I want you to roll in the dough too. How can you make that happen? You know, what are some of the things that you need to do to put yourself in that state? Because it's not going to fall out of the sky, right? Is it going to fall out of the sky? If it, you know, Steph Curry, there was a lot of work in the background that he had to do to break that record, right? Or there was a lot of work that Jay-Z had to do to get where he's at. You know, it didn't just happen overnight. So yeah, I want you to have those millions, because that's a lot of these kids want. You know, they want the bling bling and all that stuff. Yeah, I want you to get that bling bling too. Yes, right? What can you do to make that happen? You know, how are you doing in school right now? What are your grades? Do you think someone is going to get those type of grades? And I'm not even talking about like attaching value to your grades, but it's about skill. Like this is a particular game that you're playing. You're in this school game right now. You play basketball, you want to get the most points. You know, if you're in this school, it's a game. You get the A has more points than an F, right? Why don't you play that game? Because then you play that game, you learn how to play more more something games. There's a word I'm missing in my brain right now. More challenging games, right? If you can get this game under your belt, then you can start playing more challenging games that'll get you to that mansion, that'll get you to that. And my hope in the back of my mind is once they feel empowered to be able to do that stuff, then they're going to want more than just that mansion, those bling blings. They're going to have more of a self-esteem within them to see that they can accomplish these things. But you have to start with baby steps. So instead of just say no aspect, I'm always in a let's say yes. How can we make that work for you? Keep you out of jail, you know? Because I think, one more statement I say. The thing I noticed with a lot of our students is the lack of imagination. You know, a lot of times I ask the students, these are high schools, I ask them like, if you could not die and you could have anything you wanted, you can do everything, and you're successful at it, what would you do for a day? And these kids would say, oh, well, I would go rob a bank. I would steal that car. It's like, why would you need to do all, you know, so stuff like that. So it's breaking off those mental chains that they have in their brains, you know. But, you know, I just want to add that in.
Thank you, Chemnis. Tina, thank you. Charlotte, great question you put in the chat.
Greetings, good people. And I'm like, Mr. Eugene, which question? I put two, but I think one of them has been spoken to. So I'll go to the one that I think you're talking about. I think it's, thank you. And thank you for sharing about your program and especially the Mosaic Project. You know, we absolutely need programs now to help our teachers, students, parents survive in a racist world. Oftentimes we look to fix the individual, whether that's blaming the parent for a lack of success, blaming the teacher for lack of success, blaming the child for lack of success. I want to know how does the Mosaic Project actually work on the root causes of systemic racism, so our families don't always have to bear the burden and the weight of gaining more skills and tools to navigate, but that we actually begin to change the racist structures in our society so that all of us can benefit.
That's the one.
That's the one. And we do that by we break it down piece by piece by piece. Now there was an exercise I was going to try and do, but I ran my mouth, so I went past the time to be able to do it. But we talk about how when we're in this survival mode, our brains take over, right? So our brains take over, and it's going to do, and it fills in the gaps of whatever experience we don't have. For example, let's just say we have a person who's white, who's never been surrounded in a person in a Black environment, has been in a situation. So the only information they're getting is either from the media, from the news, from the books they're reading, maybe from the music they listen to. So the brain was a wonderful computer. It does a lot. It's going to fill in those gaps with those stereotypes, right? It's going to get those stereotypes, going to get those labels. And this is the brain doing it, right? And I always ask them, are you your brain? You know, and we got scientists right now that's still trying to figure that out, right? So they don't know. But anyway, our brain does this. And so it's not about blaming, it's not about feeling guilty, and it's not about being defensive about it, because we all have brains. Some of us have brains, so all of us have brains, and our brains are going to do this to do the math and do the best it can. So the thing you want to do is to slow down, right? Because we're fast, running in our lives, boom, 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 boom. That's the time when our brains shine. We got things automatically and repetitively, and fast. That's when our system takes over, and it does it. We have to think about it. You know, how many of y'all been driving home and you don't even know what happened between you get into your car and then open up the door with your keys? Like, what happened? Your brain took over, your body took over that whole situation, right? And that's what happens in social situations all the time. So the thing is, we tell people you got to slow down and then practice the concept of respect, right? And what we mean by respect, if you break that word down, the first part, and that means to do again, repeat over and over again. But then the second part is spect. And spect, when you see that particular part of the word, you see it in spectacles. I got to put my spectacles on. You know, my nan used to say all the time, spectacles, like what you talking about, right? But we also see it in words like perspective and conspective, introspection, and that means to look. So respect can also mean to look again. And so when we're talking about respect, we're asking you to look again, to slow down and look again past the stereotypes that you may have. because our brains do it. That's how our brains survive. Look again past the prejudgment you may have. Once again, our brains do it because that's how it works. So look again past that, and then stop. And I'm not asking you to walk up to any stranger and say, hey, how's it going? But at least let yourself know that this is your brain doing this. And it's not about blaming yourself for it. It's not about feeling guilty. It's not about being defensive, because we call those peace blockers, right? Those peace blockers, what they do, they block peace. They're going to keep you in that situation. So blaming someone's not going to help you grow. Being guilty is not going to help you grow. Being defensive is not going to help you grow whatsoever. But working through those peace blockers is where the growth is going to happen. And that's where the individual comes from. And I always tell people it's very challenging to try and fight a system. A system is composed of individuals behaving in a certain way, right? So if you want to fight systemic racism, you got to be able to talk to people on the level of their hearts and minds. We're grown-ups here, so I can say it, but there was during happy hour, I was at the bar and I was talking with a couple of folks, and this is during the time when Obama, in 2008, his first election, he won the election. And a guy came in, had lit too much, and he said something to the effect like, oh man, all these niggers, now they taking over and da-da-da-da. And anyone in the hood should just be locked up in jail. Now, obviously, that was a very heated situation, and anyone else would probably be justified in responding or reacting in that situation. But fortunately enough for me, I was in a state where I wanted to investigate this situation. So he came in, he came straight to me and said those words. And I was talking with him for a while, and I go, okay, so you saying all black people that way? Yeah, so every single one. I go, yeah. And then he said, oh, but wait, my boss, he's black and he seems pretty cool. Wait, but you just said all black people. Yeah, but he's different. I'll go, okay. But do you see the fact that do you see the discrepancy, what you just said and what you're saying right now? And is that the only black person in your life? Go, no, I got this other buddy right here that I work with. And what is he like? Well, he's different too. Well, is he different? So obviously you just said it. And that's just dropping keys. Now, I don't know what happened at the end of that conversation. I just had that conversation. For me, I felt fine because I was actually able to talk with that person and spoke with him within his own personal experience. Even though he may not have seen that, I just proved him wrong with everything he just said, right? And that's just me talking to that individual from his personal experience. That wasn't me fighting against his beliefs about black people, because that was his beliefs. You're not going to be able to make any change when you're at the level of beliefs and judgments, right? But if you can have the patience, and it's a lot of patience, and it is a lot of inward strength to sit with someone from that frame of mind and dig in and start talking to that person from their experience, that's where the change happens. And that's how you're going to fight the system. You fight the system by talking with people from their hearts and mind level instead of on that belief and mental level.
Thank you for that. I agree with everything that you just said, and that we do have to meet people where they are. And, oftentimes in that experience, I find that the challenge is the levels of knowing. And so even in a scenario where you just described what that person knew or thought they knew, that there's still an aspect that they think they know, something that they may have wrong. And in that, in thinking in those terms, I think about how many of our nonprofit organizations believe that the answer to the question is in fixing the people who are presenting with a problem. However, most times, even when we give people skills and tools, but we don't address the institutional barriers and lack of access that is built into inherently into all of our systems and institutions, including the nonprofit system, that we often just spend our time oftentimes teaching people how to fish, as we have, so eloquently stated in our Proverbs, but we never really get to the why question that I thought I heard you ask earlier. And so when I asked my question about getting to the root causes of systemic racism, I was looking for you to respond in more of the direction of the why questions that we need to begin to ask the people that we are here to serve, so that we can understand and truly get to how we even got to our communities being in the state that they're in, how our families get to the state that they're in, how, the outcomes are the way that they are. Yes, we can always educate. Yes, we can build people up. However, if we never go upstream to ask the why questions, then we're always going to be in a pattern of helping, being the do-gooder to build someone else up who's struggling. And oftentimes that we're making money on the backs of those people that we say we're here to serve. And so I was just looking for more about how the Mosaic Project gets to building those why questions into the way they do business and into the way they teach the students, the youth, the families, the teachers to dig deeper than just being in a place of service. And I don't know if you want to, or, how you feel or want to elaborate on that, but that's more in the direction of, I believe there's a component. I just wanted to hear more about it.
Yeah, there is a component, and we definitely talk about the why, especially when we talk about the implicit bias of where that comes from. And we unfold it more when we talk about neurology and how the brains, all that stuff, and where it comes from, especially the fear. There was another speaker on Race Talk that happened a while ago where she talked about the trauma that white folks went through with the Middle and the Dark Ages, right? And we touch upon that as well. We talk about, I personally talk, when I'm talking with high schoolers, I personally talk about how you had traumatized people come into another land, traumatizing other people, right? So traumatized people, traumatizing other people. So where did that trauma come from? So a lot of it is trauma blowing on trauma, trauma blowing on trauma. And we talk about how to stop that. We always talk about hurt people hurt other people. Hurt people hurt other people. And the way to combat that is peaceful people heal other people, or healed people heal people, and I can unpack that even more, but basically we talk a lot there. We added a lot of history. We centered things in historical evidence as well, right? And we do go through a lot of the why.
Great question. And follow up. Thank you. Great. We're going to have one more question, and that's from the Dr. Felicia Williams-Colsey. And then we'll start to wrap this up. Good to see you, Felicia.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Finally, classes are over and I can be here on a Wednesday morning. Chemnis, I just want to start by saying I am in awe of your courage, of your passion, of the way that you've spoken to every question that's been thrown at you so far. And I'm sure if we had 2 or 3 more hours, you could just continue to help us learning in this process. One of the things that I know a lot about our Black and Brown cultures is that we are very relationship and community oriented. And often when brought to the forefront as a higher value, it actually moves people into action for self as well as for others that they care about. And so my question is, as you're working with the 4th and 5th graders, and even more so perhaps when you get to the high school, how much you're bringing that value in. I'm imagining that in the type of programs that you're doing, there's some natural leaders that are evolving and showing up, not evolving, they're already there, but through the activities of your program, it becomes obvious that they have leadership skills, that they're respected among the other kids, that they can break things down if somebody else isn't getting it. And I'm wondering how within your program you're nurturing that.
How we're nurturing that connection, like the relationship aspect?
The leadership. So if, for example, you find in an outing that there are students who are naturally the ones that are helping others get it, or they get it first and they're able to articulate it to others, or basically they're showing up as natural leaders, are there ways that your program either follows that or provides additional support, or perhaps brings the high school students back to the 4th and 5th graders so that they can see people, from their community who are embracing and embodying what you're teaching?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, since we've been around since 2000, since roughly 2016 on up, we've been having students coming back. So you come as a 4th or 5th grader, and then you become what we call a cabin leader. And a cabin leader usually is those who came as 4th and 5th graders. So people start coming in and they start, have that reciprocal relationship, and they can share their own personal experience and their growth with that. So yeah, we've been having high schoolers starting to come back to start teaching what they got from the program themselves. And I find the best way to nurture that leadership skills, especially from the shy ones, is giving them that opportunity to start practicing in role play. Is whenever we set that container, that environment, like this is a safe place for you right now, and we want you to be able to experiment. And if you find yourself that you lean on the shy part, this week, we want you to just step out a little bit, step into your stretch zone, and try and talk more. If you feel like you only say 10 words a day, try 10, 15 words today, kind of thing like that, And so we try and give them the environment where they can step out of their comfort zone and be able to experience themselves in a different way. And that's the hard thing, is setting that environment. And they come in on a Monday. Wednesday is probably when that starts to happen for a lot of the students who are very shy and very soft-spoken. But I think the thing that nurtures that natural leadership skill, I think every student does have a leadership instinct about it, is to have that safe space for them to be able to see that new self of them, the new self of themselves, to be able to experience that. And knowing that they're surrounded by people who is going to help them nurture that if they would like to. And it is much more powerful when their peers are giving them the encouragement to do that. As those adults, they know that, it's your job to do that. But when they start seeing these high schoolers who is their world, to a 4th or 5th grader, they start having these high schoolers come in saying the same thing that we're saying, but from their perspective, they're the coolness of our program. They're the ones that run our programs pretty much. And so we train them to be the leaders to the 4th and 5th graders.
I just want to also say I'm really impressed by both your name and your logo, because it really stands out that every single one of us has a piece. None of us have the whole mosaic. None of us have everything. And so there may be people who want to focus on systemic racism, and they bring their piece. And others of us can focus on working from a values perspective, or some work with children and some work with adults, but each of us has a piece in this mosaic to make it whole. So I really appreciate you bringing that forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Felicia. Chemnis, any last words? And also, do you have for our listening people here, you're in any call to action? Last words and what is your call to action for us?
My call to action is to have those difficult discussions. Is to have those discussions, to be able to develop your own, if you haven't done it yet, to have the skill set to be able to have a difficult discussion in a compassionate way, to be able to talk with people you normally wouldn't talk with because they would just get on your last nerve, But yet the best way to improve our worldly situation is to be able to talk with people who do get on our last nerves, right? But we have to be able to have the skill set to be able to do that, and the compassion to be able to come from ourselves to that person to be able to have those difficult conversations, which is what race talk is all about, right? To be able to have those challenging conversations. And I do feel, just to add on to what me and Felicia was talking about, is when you provide that that environment, that container, that leadership aspect naturally emerges out. You know, it naturally emerges out. We just have to set that container for those kids, for our young adults, to be able to let them know it's all right, try it out, see what happens. That naturally happens when they feel like they're surrounded by people who love them and care about them.
Brother Chemnis, thank you. Whew, Lane?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love that those were your closing words. Yeah. So, and I want to also say thank you for the conversation today about the need, Charlotte, to address systems, because truly, this is where the crux of the work is. And sometimes what there is for us to do is to work with who is in front of us at the time, right? And so I love that, Chemnis. It's like, yes, have a conversation with who is there. And empower that person so that you would empower each other to make change. This is a beautiful venue. And I just want to say thank you for your time. And please do continue to be a part of our Race Talk family, Chemnis, because we love having you here. So thank you very much for allowing us to put you into the spotlight today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Everybody, please join us next week. It will be our last Race Talk episode for this year. Special edition of Race Talk Revolution. We are going to bring you a panel discussion on the topic of ending qualified immunity for police. Our guest will be Colorado State Representative Leslie Herod. Colorado was one of the first states, I think it was the first state, to pass a bill ending qualified immunity for police officers, and she's going to tell us how they got that done. She's going to be joined by Ms. Lauren Bonds of the National Police Accountability Project and policing reform advocate, retired police captain Lawrence Hunter. This will be our last episode, as I say, so please don't miss it, and invite your friends and colleagues to join us for this very important conversation. We're so glad to see so many new people here. At some point, we'd love to know who brung you. We are so grateful to those people, so tell them thank you for us. There is an Undoing Racism workshop for faith groups coming up on January 9th, 10th, and 11th. If you're interested in that, please contact me. Please send an email to info@racetalkrevolution.com, and I will get you that information of who to contact for that workshop. And I will say good afternoon and turn it over to Eugene.
Thank you so much. We just want to do a couple of things here. Again, I know we've talked about this already, but I want to say again, Chemnis, brother, thank you so much for being here. And I want to say thank you for all of those who are here for the first time. It's good to see you. It's good to hear you. And we hope that you come back. I also want to say thank you to all of the people who attended our first What Is Ours to Do workshop this past Saturday. Very successful. We are grateful for your partnership, and we look forward to continuing to support you on your journey to creating a world that works for everyone. Lane and I are scheduling our next one in the first quarter of next year. As usual, we want to encourage you to engage in conversations with folks who don't look like you and who maybe don't think like you, as Chemnis was talking about. And this is what Race Talk Revolution is all about, is having those conversations. I was going to say difficult conversations, but I want to say challenging conversations. And we are all up for a challenge, right? Because we are always seeking new growth opportunities, and we want to use these opportunities to speak with people who don't look like us, who don't think like us, to help, bring the system of racism and oppression, to an end, because I really do believe that we can do that as we continue to come together in formats like this and just keep talking about it, and with the intention of learning and growing together. I know that, as I say in my purpose statement, we all are here to reveal heaven on earth. And to me, heaven is ever expanding good. And the only way to do that is to continue to have conversations with one another. Cool. Cool. I love you guys. This is so very good. So again, be with us next week for our last one of the year as we prepare to go into a beautiful new year called 2022.
Hey,
that's about it.
Could I say one thing, Eugene? Sorry.
Yes. So you get the last word.
Okay. If anyone had any additional questions about what the Mosaic Project is and was interested in having their child participate in some way, form, fashion, please email me at it's Khemnes, so it's Khemnes at mosaicproject.org. So Khemnes at mosaicproject.org. I saw there was some questions about donations. So definitely, if you have any questions about anything, just hit me up with that email and I will answer as soon as I can. Thank you.
And with that, we're out. Thank you, everybody.
Love you guys. Have a great afternoon, everyone.